Hello and welcome back to Let's All Laugh At, the football podcast that thrives at someone else's expense. I'm George and I'm joined by Johnny and Andrew for this midweek/European special. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, not bad, mate, not bad.
Yeah, could be worse, could be better.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, Johnny, you're actually the only team of ours that's on the present anyways. I mean, Dan, obviously, Liverpool played, but he's not here with us. But the three of us, you're the only one that's played in the part since we've done the last podcast against Olympiacos. 3-1 in the end of the final score in the Europa League. Like I said, as we were saying just before we started, I thought it was a really impressive performance from you guys against a very decent side as well.
Yeah, no, it was. It was a good performance, to be fair. I mean, it's always nice to get some sort of revenge for last season. Olympiacos are not a bad side, but I thought we controlled the game for long parts. I thought in the first half we probably could have been 2 or 3 up, to be honest. Great save from Aubameyang's header from the keeper. Good save that. And then Odegaard scores a worldie, although the keeper should have done better, to be honest. But yeah, and then of course Arsenal, in typical Arsenal fashion, decided to give the opposition a goal, which is typical of Arsenal. We might as well just start 1-0 down every game because we always give a goal away. But yeah, I was very impressed. It's quite a big win. That third goal was big. That's about 3 away goals now. But yeah, it was impressive. I thought Odegaard played very well. It was good. It was good. El Neni, when he came on, I was thinking, oh, here we go. And then he goes and scores a goal. So I think he scored 4 goals for Arsenal now, and they've all been outside the box. So, but yeah, it was a big win, actually. It's a big week. Now we've obviously got Spurs on Sunday. Then we've got West Ham next weekend. So it means it's a big week for the Arsenal. And it started off quite well, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Odegaard, I mean, I remember when Real Madrid first signed him, it feels like ages ago now, 5 or 6 years ago it must have been, when he was like 17 or 18 or even 16 it might have been, and all the hype was around him, and I had a feeling that it was going to be one of those players that just sort of got lost in their reserves. But to be fair to him, he had a great season on loan at Real Sociedad, and now he's coming to Arsenal and is doing really well as well. So I'm really pleased with him because he's still got a big future ahead of him, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And he's definitely seeing some of the star quality that he's got, and why Madrid were after him in the first place. He's really comfortable on the ball. Some lovely touches. He can hit a ball as well. And yeah, I mean, very impressive him. A lot of Arsenal fans were a little bit worried about him coming to Arsenal, saying, is he going to be able to handle the Premier League? But so far, in the games that he's played, he's been really impressive. And again, last night was really impressive and could be key for Sunday, Odegaard. Even on the podcast, when we were linked with him, I was thinking, I'm not sure if we're going to get him or not, but I'm glad we did. Really impressive him. Who knows? We might keep him in the summer. We don't know. Who knows? But yeah, really impressive Odegaard. We like him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, Arsenal have definitely picked up since the turn of the year, considering, they were in a relegation battle for most of the start of the year, or what looked like it. But, I mean, the thing with Arsenal is they have a really good run, and then they'll have one sort of not good result after that, or a couple of not good results after that. So, I mean, the Spurs game is always going to be the big one. If they can win that, then they are really in the mix amongst that sort of top 8 sort of teams. Yeah. But can you see them finding any consistency? And if not, what do you think they still need to do?
I don't think they'll find the consistency because they still have Granit Xhaka trying to, create Burnley's goals. So they have some really good players now in lots of positions. Like they've got a great left back, they've got a great keeper, centre back, they've got Gabriel now, who's very good. But they still, for me in particular, alongside Partey, they need central midfielders, and probably they got Saka on one side. Still not sure about Pepe and Willian on the other side. So for them to get that consistency, but I think it will come because Smith Rowe is playing really well. Like, Johnny's mentioned, Odegaard's doing well, Aubameyang's back in form. So they've got a lot of things going. They probably still, though, are just not quite top 6 at the moment. And it'll be very interesting to see, like, if, say, Arsenal were to be knocked out of the Europa League, it doesn't look like they are going to, but if they weren't, if there would be any pressure on Arteta, because really, with that squad, you would expect them to be at least in the top 6. So I guess they're accepting it as a transition year. But yeah, a lot of Arsenal fans would be annoyed. But I think the way he's done it, where they've started off badly and now improve, is better than if he started off well and been just down, losing at home all the time. So I think because he got that FA Cup, he's got a bit of credit with the Arsenal fans, so they'll give him a bit more time.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their run in now. Their next 3 games, they've got Spurs next, and they've got West Ham after that, and then Liverpool. So, I mean, it's weird to say that I think West Ham might be the most difficult of those 3 at the moment, given the recent form and the fact they're away from home as well, Arsenal. That's their away game. But if they can get 6 or 7 points from those 3 games, they're because the rest of their run in as well. I mean, Chelsea away after that in the third to last week of the season is really the only really tough game they've got left after that. The rest are perfectly winnable. So for me, I think that if they can get through this, you say that, but Arsenal, I mean, they've tended to do better against the bigger teams. I mean, they beat Chelsea, they beat United away from home, and then they've sort of fallen to the likes of your Burnleys and your Wolveses and your Evertons. So, I mean, Everton are in that top 6 bracket as well, but for the most part, they're not in the same stature. It's I don't know. I mean, it's kind of you must. I'm not struggling what to make of it, Johnny. You must be even worse than me.
Oh, we're very frustrating to watch because 1 minute we can, on Boxing Day when we tore Chelsea apart for 45 minutes, we were unbelievable, and we're thinking here we go, and then we'll play really poorly against someone like an Aston Villa. As I say, I mean, at the moment, for me, it's kind of Europa League or bust really, because if we win the Europa League and finish 7th. And that's what I'll take that every day of the week. I'll take that. Of course, when we get above Spurs, that is if we can win the Europa League and get above Spurs, that would be double bubble. But I mean, as I said, the next few games, George, are massive. Obviously Spurs, which is it's massive for every Arsenal fan and Spurs fan. And then we've got West Ham and Liverpool. They're difficult games, and Chelsea. If we can get 7 points from them games. Maybe win a couple. I think we can beat any of them teams, to be honest. But it's not going to be easy. If we can get 9 points out of that, I'll be unbelievably happy.
More important now, Johnny, because of the Champions League spot.
Yeah, the Europa League is now massive. I mean, I remember a few years, when Arsenal win the Champions League all them moons ago, it feels like, we used to laugh on the Europa League and go, we used to call it Spurs Day. But now we did, honestly, but now the Europa League has got so much better, and it has. There's better teams in it now. I mean, of course, it's nowhere near as good as the Champions League in terms of teams. Of course, it isn't, but it's got better, and there's better teams in it, and it's very competitive now. And if you win the Europa League, it's now kind of regarded as a big trophy, whereas 5-10 years ago it probably wasn't. But now, if you win the Europa League, you're classed as it's a big trophy now. Well, it is for me if we win it anyway.
Yeah, okay. So moving on to, we mentioned the Liverpool game at the very start. The only English team in the Champions League active this week. 2-0 against RB Leipzig. Both, I think it was Salah Mane with the goals, wasn't it? Yeah. So the best, the classic attacking force back at it, and a much needed win for Liverpool in their second. Andrew, you said that I don't think they can win the Champions League, and I probably agree with that, because I think the other teams, particularly with the season Liverpool are having, there are other teams on paper much stronger. I mean, Bayern Munich in particular, I think they're nailed on to win it again, in my opinion. I think they're much more likely to win it than they are to win the league, because in those sort of one-off games that they can prepare for, and Liverpool always seem to turn it on more in the Champions League. I mean, Atletico last season was maybe the exception, but for the most part, it's a competition that they've done well in under Klopp.
Yeah, I mean, they got to a final and then they've won it. So under Klopp, I don't think they could win it because they're still playing Kabak and Phillips, or Kabak and Reece Williams, or whoever at centre back. And against the top teams, they will, they'll come. They lost 4-1 at home to City. That's not that long ago. So they've just, they lost to Man U in the FA Cup as well. So I can't see them, winning the Champions League. But it made such a difference to have Fabinho in centre mid. You could see they missed him as an enforcer. And obviously he's been playing centre back because of Inde. And a lot of people have said this. Was Klopp right to weaken 2 positions? So by moving Fabinho and Henderson into centre back, you're not only weakening the centre back, but you're weakening the midfield.
Yeah.
And obviously he made that decision. I personally think I would play a centre back at centre back and use Fabinho in centre mid, because if you're dominating the ball and winning the ball back all the time, then you're going to create chances. And I think they've really missed Fabinho because I think he was the key signing in turning Liverpool from an overpowering City. Because last season he was incredible in the centre mid. Because obviously Van Dijk took them from kind of like fourth, fifth to second, and then Fabinho kind of added on, get them over the line really. So I believe that he should now be like, let's just play centre back and use Fabinho in midfield. And when Henderson comes back, use him in midfield and just see what happens. This season's a write-off for Liverpool. It's been a bit of a disaster, really. One of the worst defences in Premier League, but understandable with the injuries. But they also need to make sure that for next season they're not going in feeling this lull and going a little bit of a run. But yeah, I can't see them going Bayern, Man City, and PSG as me just too far ahead of them with their injuries at defence.
Yeah, I mean, it's that argument, isn't it, about do you play someone who's a natural in their position, who's not as good, or do you play a more experienced pro, who's a bit more out of position? I mean, me personally, I think that if you play a player that's in his natural position, they already know the job they're supposed to do. They haven't got to adapt. Even if the previous player has experience in that position as well, it's not one they're as familiar with. So even if they're not as good on a technical level, I feel like you're still going to have an advantage there. I think that's a lot of the argument people use for playing younger players a lot of the time as well, because they're in that position as opposed to playing someone, a senior out of position. God knows we have enough experience with that under Roy Hodgson. But I mean, Johnny, whereabouts do you with Liverpool especially, like Andrew said, they haven't. I mean, he's made the point several times, quite rightly, that not buying a centre back and selling Dejan Lovren has really come to bite Liverpool. But at the same time, like, they do have options there, albeit not as good ones, and they're playing other players out of position. So, like, where do you fall on that line?
Well, I mean, I've said it numerous times as well that I thought that not buying a centre back in January when they badly needed one. We all laughed about Mustafi, and but he would have been perfect for Liverpool. We know he's got Premier League experience. He might not be the best centre back in the world. We all know that. But
Mustafi.
He's Premier League experience. They brought that cat back in. He's still very young, but he comes from Schalke, who've got awful. They can see goals as well, and I said the word negligence, and I thought that's what it was. You can't have your two centre backs out and not buy a decent centre back because that's just poor. But let me just say, Liverpool was superb against Leipzig. I was kind of concerned if I was a Liverpool fan the other day because I thought if Leipzig score early, that could be a really interesting night. But Liverpool played very well, 2 good goals. I mean, you can never write off Liverpool in the Champions League because they always just find the way of getting results. I don't think they will win it, but you can never write them off because they've got phenomenal players. And Fabinho made a big difference. He was a rock for them the other night, and he's a decent player. But I don't know, Liverpool. 1 minute they play well, like they did against Leipzig, and then whoever they're playing this weekend, they'll go and lose. And this is kind of where Liverpool are at the moment. They're very inconsistent. I've said about the injuries before. Yes, they've got injuries to Van Dijk and Gomez, but they've still got good players to go out and beat certain teams. And I think maybe some of it in the league is a bit of down attitude. I've said that before as well. Just they think they can roll teams over like last season, and this season they can't. And I still think there's twists and turns. Liverpool, they're not going to win the league, obviously, but top 4, it's an opportunity if they start winning games again. But their home form's so poor.
I think as well, this Liverpool team is not worse than the 2005 Liverpool team that won the Champions League, or even the 2012 Chelsea team that won the Champions League. So they, it is possible, obviously, in one-off games to beat. To win. They probably had a better chance last year when the knockout stages were all one leg. Maybe it would be a bit trickier with it being 2 legs. And you got to give them credit as well. To be fair, Leipzig are pushing Bayern Munich at the moment. They're right up there. And this is the best team we've said, won everything last year. Look incredible in the Champions League. So, Leipzig are no mugs, even though obviously they sold Werner last season. So, got to give them credit.
Oh, definitely. And I think with Liverpool, if they can avoid your Bayern Munichs and your PSGs, until if they get to the final, if they can avoid them, until the final, then they've got a good chance of beating them. But I think over 2 legs, I mean, I can't imagine what Mbappe would do over 2 legs against Kabak. I think that'd get ugly. I think that would be pretty embarrassing, to be honest. Because for me, Mbappe is, well, there aren't many. I've run out of words for him. Just world class.
Yeah, I mean, in that conversation of players, definitely right up there. I'm sure we'll get onto him when we talk about the PSG game. The 2005 team, I mean, that 2005 team lost to Palace, whereas this one thrashed us 7-0. So there's definitely more ability in there, in my opinion.
Were you 7 at the time? Can you remember?
I watched that game in the pub. I remember that very clearly. I watched the whole thing. I would have been 6 years old. Yeah, so just 6.
He's in the pub, unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, I was. You gotta start him young. Bloody hell.
Big ID at 6 years old. That's incredible.
Yeah, we were with a Liverpool fan as well. A Liverpool fan and his dad. It was in London, so the rest of the bar was Palace fans. But it was him as well. I was fully expecting us to lose because it's Liverpool. It was. And yeah, it was like the 4th or 5th last game of the season. We needed to win to try and stay up, and then we didn't stay up in the end, anyways. You know. Poor little old me. First time I've ever cried at football. But there you go. Moving on. So in terms of the other British teams in the Europa League, the big one obviously is Manchester United, AC Milan. I mean, that's 10 European Cups between them. Formerly very much a Champions League tie on paper, but you know, both teams come under hard-ish times as of late. So that's where they are right now. And yeah, 1-1 in the end. Danilo getting his first goal for United, and then AC Milan equalising. So, I mean, Andrew, what did you make of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I actually watched the first most of that match. For me, it wasn't the greatest match to watch, and I felt Diallo, when he came on, he made a difference. Obviously, he got the goal, but Man U will be kicking themselves to concede and conceding an away goal. So important in these matches now to get an away goal. You know, I think it can change your whole chance, because Milan United go and struggle to score in Milan. They're out, basically.
Yeah.
So they really, you know, for me as well, looking, the Milan team has done much better this season. They've been pushing Inter, but Man U should still be beating this Milan side with the, you know, amount of money they've spent and everything like that. So, I mean, I think for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it's so important that he gets them past to the final, because he's had this record of just going out semi-final. He really needs to prove that he can now take teams to the final and win something, because, you know, we all laugh at like how Mourinho was at United sometimes, but the guy won the Europa League. So
yeah,
with the worst team as well, you could argue.
And to be honest, that, you know, we say Man U really should have got through that group with PSG and Leipzig. They threw it away. They were comfortable with 4 games, and then they messed up their last 2 games. So really, they need to win the Europa League to get some credence. Because if we're honest, Man United is probably the biggest club in this country. They should be in the last 16 of the Champions League. They shouldn't be messing about with the Europa League.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it wasn't for that disallowed goal from that Kessie. What a strike that was! I'm not even sure why it was disallowed, to be fair, but what a strike that was. I mean, if that's given, then that changes the whole thing completely for United. Now they've got to go to the San Siro, and they've got to score a goal. And
do you back them to do it? Because I think United, they've been much better away from home in particular. I think all the games in the league they've lost have all been at home. So I don't think they're out of it yet, but they do need that away goal for sure.
Yeah, I think they will get through in the end. I think they'll just get through, because that's what United do. They, you know, when they're kind of up against it, they kind of seem to get a result, and it won't be easy at the San Siro, but it's a home game, isn't it, for Milan? But there's no fans, so there is no advantage anymore. So, but it ain't going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all, because Milan are a decent side, and they've got some dangerous players. And I mean, that goal from Kessie, I mean, I wish that was given, because that was such a great strike. But yeah, it's a big time for Solskjaer, because as Andrew said, you know, they've last season 4 semi-finals and lost them all. You know, it's time they actually got to a final and won something, because, you know, it's a big time for Solskjaer, I think.
Because I still think United fans aren't completely convinced by Solskjaer, and, you know, if he won a trophy, I think he would give him a bit more, like, they would be like, okay, well, we've come second this season, and we've won a trophy. But whilst he's not won the trophy, people are always going to say, can can you see him overtaking Guardiola? And at the moment, I just don't think there's any chance. I know they beat them, but for me, still there is a deficit, which means that he won't get them past City. Whilst, when we saw Liverpool coming up, we could see that Klopp was building something that could go past City. But in United, I think probably will be the biggest spenders this summer because they're probably least affected by COVID because they've got the biggest income coming in. Yeah, I mean, he really, really does need this trophy. And just, I think for me, like United, in the next couple of years, they really should be up there with City, considering how much they spend themselves.
Yeah, so that leaves Rangers then. We've done all the English teams, and then obviously Rangers had their last 16 tie as well against Slavia Prague. The crowned Scottish champions last weekend, which we already talked about. Make sure you check that out. And then a 1-1 draw against Prague, and you beat Leicester in the last round as well, don't forget. So they're no mugs by any means, even though Leicester weren't at their best. And, I mean, Johnny, Rangers, I mean, they really are on this incredible run. I mean, unbeaten in League and Europe. Like, haven't lost a single game at all, and played some good teams as well, particularly in Europe. So, I mean, maybe winning it might be a bit of a stretch, but do you think they could even make, I don't know, even semi-finals? Because they're looking like it at this rate.
Well, when they're playing, I was quite glad we didn't get them, to be honest, because they'd be difficult to play against.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a decent side, to be honest, and I think, I mean, it's a good result for them last night in Prague, because of course, as I say, they beat Leicester, and Leicester are no mugs, and big away goal again. And you kind of expect Rangers to go on and win it now, but I mean, they're a decent side, and they could be dark horses to go and win it, Rangers. Of course, I hope they don't. I hope Arsenal win it, of course. But the Rangers have got a big chance, I think. I think every team will be going, I don't want to face them where they're playing, because they score goals. They don't concede many either. I think only in the league they've conceded 9 goals all season or something silly like that. So they don't concede many. So, yeah, they're dark horses, Rangers. They're playing lovely football. I think they could maybe dominate Scottish football for a while now with that squad. They're a decent side, and an Arsenal Rangers final would be quite nice.
To me, with Rangers, it gives Steven Gerrard more confidence to be linked with top jobs if he can get them to a semi-final. I mean, they did get, I think it was under Walter Smith, maybe 2008. They got to the UEFA Cup final, and then
Manchester.
Johnny's best friend Andre Arshavin torn to pieces. Zenit Petersburg. So. Yeah, I think for him it would, because people could say, oh, it's the Scottish League, but when Gerrard wins the league, then he can say, well, look, I've done this in the Europa League. So, because I think as well, Celtic to a Europa League final on Moston Mourinho's Porto 2004. So it's important for Scottish game as well, because people will respect more if their top teams, like. It wasn't that long ago, Celtic were losing 7-0 at home to PSG. So, people are respecting Rangers more.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, it'll be the Champions League for them next season. So I suppose the next step for them, regardless of what they're doing in the Europa League, will be making that last 16, because it's been a long time since they did. Long time since any Scottish team did, I believe. So that will be their next step for sure. By the way, I said before, that Liverpool were the only English team in action in the Champions League this week. Well, I mean, no, it was this week. So I'm looking back at the fixtures, and I saw Man City v Mönchengladbach. That was like last February. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but that's not till next week, so that was right. But speaking of Manchester City, they did play in the midweek. I don't know why I thought that game was yesterday when it was, or Wednesday or whenever it was. Because they played in the league, they wouldn't have had the European game straight after, even if they were at home. But regardless, Southampton. They played the Southampton game, won that game in the end. But I mean, we mentioned it before before the pod as well, before the show. I mean, that it's all anyone's been talking about is that Phil Foden challenge that wasn't given, or the challenge on Phil Foden, I should say. I mean, like, it's weird that we're talking about VAR going against one of the big clubs, but I mean, I guess that's sort of a sign of how all over the place it's been this season.
I mean, how's it not a penalty? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I can't work out how that's not given as a penalty. I mean, McCarthy, sorry, what his name is, McCarthy, is I just don't understand how the VAR can look at that and not give a penalty. That is the most bizarre decision.
Point VAR when they give those decisions which are 100% clear cut, and they're still going, yeah, it's not a penalty. It's just like, I just do not understand who watched that. If you're not sure, get 10 people to look at it. Every single person should be saying that's a penalty. Why is it on one referee?
Do you not think there's a potential? Do you think it's potentially they're trying to get that decision wrong to to draw attention to themselves and to create a ruckus? Like, do you not think that might be part of it? I mean, don't have any evidence either way. But do you?
Yeah, I don't think Ollie Mike Dean does that. I mean, I don't think. I think Ollie Mike Dean does controversial decisions to give himself attention.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't agree with that at all. I think there's a lot of referees out there that would do that if they wanted, not just Mike Dean, but
Craig Pawson, Kevin Friend, and Andre Marin. No, anyway.
But anyways, sorry, some repressed trauma coming out there. Sorry, carry on, Andrew.
Yeah, I just think, like, if 10 football fans looked at that, everyone is going to say that's a penalty. But then you have one little referee who goes, no, it's not a penalty. It's just, yeah.
The thing is, we all hate diving. You know, we don't like diving. You know, and there's been penalties given over the past few weeks where, you know, someone's been pulled back and they've gone down like they've been shot. That's given as a penalty. And Foden's took it round McCarthy. He's took his legs out, and if Foden goes down, although, you know, if he doesn't go, he doesn't go down, doesn't get a penalty. But if he goes down, you go, well, why did he stay on his feet? He was too honest. You know, and if City would have lost that game or drawn it, and, you know, he'd have gone, oh, I should have dived. You know, it's a stonewall penalty. That is just. So I didn't actually watch the game. I actually listened to it on the radio, and when they said it was a stonewall penalty, I was thinking, I'll go on Twitter and have a look. And I was like, how can the VAR, a referee, look at that and not go? I don't know. Is that the referee might not be able to see it. That's fine. The VAR is like, you've got 27 different angles and still goes, nah, not sure about that. Are you mental? Come on.
The thing is, as well, it's like, I didn't mind VAR being in place if it would get these sorts of decisions where they're nailed on, right, and stop travesties of, like, justice. But I was thinking, like, for instance, the Aguero moment, if you imagine if we'd had VAR then, that moment is completely kind of deflated and destroyed.
Yeah, there's a very good chance it would have gone to VAR, wouldn't it? And they might have disallowed it for offside, whether it was on or not.
It not only would have gone to VAR, but the whole celebration, everything would have been a bit weird. We've been waiting around. It would have been a bit.
Well, I mean, to be fair on that one, like, we do have cases like where they go and consult the linesman as well. Like, we do have that without VAR as well. I agree, it's much more common, but, like, I don't think that's a VAR specific problem, and I feel like if you just ironed out when it was actually used, like they have done in Europe, because they have much better referees and it's much less of a problem, then I don't like the argument that it ruins the romance of it, because there's no reason it should.
It's like, okay, you need much better referees. 99.9% of football fans watching that all said it's a penalty. How bad can the referee be? Like, you don't need to be a referee to get that decision right.
Exactly. Like,
there's a bit down. Like, there's nothing. It's so deliberate. Like, there's nothing. You know, some people it should have been a red card as well. To be honest, but
I've had a thought as well. Like, you know, like when the referee goes over to look at the monitor. Well, I mean, the fourth officials, right? What do they actually do apart from hold up the substitution sign and the board for injury time? What do they actually really do? I mean, why can't the fourth official and the referee go over and discuss it? Because both referees, surely that, you know, have more input. You know, and I just find it. How it even went to VAR and they got it wrong. That's worrying for the state of English football. That is, well, if that's not a penalty, then you might as well never give a penalty again, because that's just,
like, for me, I think I do miss some of the spontaneity of football, and going to VAR is we're starting to lose that. And I know if I was a fan in the stadium, that feeling when a goal goes in, it's more dilute now. It's not quite the same. And I know there's no fans at the moment, so maybe it was a good year for them to be trialing it. But if they make that sort of decision wrong, like, what is the point?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. What is the point? Absolutely, it's just, and I think some of these decisions are being made because there's no fans, and because, you know, the Etihad is not exactly the most noisiest ground in the world anyway. But say if that's happened somewhere else,
the Emirates bouncing,
yeah. You have to get that in, didn't you? Have to get that in. No, but you know, it's like, I think some of these decisions, if there's fans in that stadium and the fans can see it, and I think the referee would be given a penalty for that in VAR. I think, because I think they're kind of using the excuse. They get away with making poor decisions because of no fans. That's my personal opinion. I think they go, well, the fans aren't going to be going mental because there's no one here, and we can make that decision because we're not going to get any abuse. Whereas they will on Twitter, but not in the stadium.
Yeah, well, that was what made me think it was perhaps influenced that decision, because there's no way anyone reasonable looks at that and said it's anything other than a penalty. So, like, even don't care how bad a referee you are, just like Andrew said. So that was what made me think that. But we will move on, because Lord knows we've talked about VAR enough on this show already. And we'll move on to the other big news breaking out of the Premier League, or sort of breaking out, but not quite confirmed. It's a bit all over the place. Reports coming out that Chris Wilder was set to leave his job at Sheffield United after about 5.5 years or 4.5 years in charge, and it's been retracted, saying that he's not gone yet, but is close to having an agreement, and he hasn't taken training. Like, it's a bit all over the place. For the most part, it looks very much like, he is going to be leaving. I think that's looking very likely. So, I mean, there's a lot been made about it. A lot of people are comparing it to the likes of Ranieri when he was at Leicester, when he was sacked. Eddie Howe leaving Bournemouth just last year. I mean, what do you two make of it?
I mean, I like Chris Wilder. He's kind of like a no-nonsense, straight-talking. We all like about him. I like Chris Wilder.
Go on. Say you're missing old school in English. Go on, old school English gaffer. Go on, go and say
it. I like Chris Wilder. Yeah.
The guy.
If it is truly he's leaving, it's a sad day for Sheffield United if he does go, because of course they're going down anyway. So, but it's weird now. Why not just wait till the end of the season? That's very bizarre. But wherever he goes, maybe he's been linked somewhere else and he wants to try a new challenge somewhere else. I don't know, but he got Sheffield United from League One to the Premier League. So he's a good manager, and I think wherever he goes, because he's not going to be short of offers, he'll do a good job. Because as I say, I really like him, because he's just straight talking. He doesn't mince his words. But Sheffield United, I think we said in the group chat, who are they going to? I kind of said Frank Lampard, because I think it's a good little project for Lampard to go to. Championship as well, who knows? But Chris Wilder, I could see him in the Premier League for maybe even Palace, George. You never know.
Yeah, well, he has been linked with us, or at least the fans have been talking about him. It's a bit like Sean Dyche in that I think he would do well with us and he gets results, but I think most of our fans will be bored with football in about 5 games, because they really have gotten to that point. I mean, I don't care, as long as we're winning games and as long as we're... I mean, I've made this point enough times, I'm not going to go through it again, but I think most fans still have a preference for Eddie Howe out of the 3 we've been linked with. But regardless of that, I mean, you mentioned Lampard. The reason I said he's not going to go there is because, I mean, he's certainly not going to go there now because he's not going to want a relegation on his CV, particularly so early in his career. I think if he was to go there, it wouldn't happen until the summer. Yeah. And that's what I don't understand. Like, who is going to take that job right now? It's going to be a much more attractive prospect in the summer when because let's face it, they're going to be one of the stronger teams in the Championship next season, most likely, even with the players they're likely to lose. So why not just keep him at least until the summer? And then either give him a crack at trying to get them back up, because he's won promotion twice with them already. He can absolutely do it. Or give the job to someone more capable like a Frank Lampard if he's willing to make the step down. So, I mean, I don't think he would. I think he'd want to either go to a mid-table team like a not that I think Palace would appoint him, but like a Palace or a Southampton, or go somewhere abroad. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that there's something going on behind the scenes, because it just doesn't make sense from a logical perspective, especially because he's such a beloved figure at that club. He's a United fan, and the fans love him, and he's already done so much with them. Like, it really smacks of something going on that we just don't know about.
If they'd been closer to the relegation zone, I think the board probably would have been like, okay, let's just keep him on. Us back up, because they've been so cut adrift. They took so long to obviously get their first win. Obviously, it was against Newcastle. They've been so adrift. I think it is hard to change that losing culture when you have overseen so many successive defeats and not winning for so long. But the thing is he's put Sheffield United on the map. They were in, like Johnny said, they were in League One. Like, it had been years since they'd been. I think Warnock got them in the Premier League 1 year, the Tevez year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where Tevez relegated them, but like they'd gone into the abyss kind of, and he brought them back. He should really have been given the opportunity to bring them back. I think his biggest error is his 2 signings of Ramsdale and Brewster. Both of them have been huge flops, and as well, sounds to me like he wanted signings in January. He didn't get them, so kind of it it's too late now. So he's kind of, because they've got Saudi owners, so he kind of disagreed with the decision by the Saudi owners. But for me, he should have been given more, like at least to start next season. But he probably would have wanted to clear out a lot of that squad, because it's so difficult to turn a losing culture. We've seen Sunderland got relegated once and then got relegated again.
Yeah, I think with Sheffield United, I mean, you can't win. Injuries have been a lot. I've been talking about a lot on this podcast for obviously Liverpool, but you can't. I mean, Jack O'Connell has been injured for the whole of the season, and he was integral part of last season, and they've missed him massively. Dean Henderson going back to United. I mean, they're two very, very important players, and they haven't really replaced them. And without something like Michael Owen, they just don't score. They just don't score enough goals. I like David McGoldrick. He's a hard-working player, but if that's your top goal scorer, I mean, you've got problems. And William Brewster just can't score a goal. I feel sorry for Sheffield United, because last season they were a breath of fresh air, but this season they've just losing Henderson, Jack O'Connell being out, Sander Berger being out for a long time. They've had a lot of injuries, but don't get me wrong, they've been poor for a lot of the time. Don't get me wrong, but I do think if O'Connell and Henderson are still in that team, I don't think they would be where they are. I think they'd be still maybe 15th, 16th, because they overachieved last season. But I don't think they'd be in the relegation battle if they had them two players.
Yeah, I think their summer business is the biggest reason for their downfall, in my opinion. I mean, Ryan Brewster, not only was that his biggest signing, it was the club's biggest signing. And the fact that he's barely even played, let alone, I don't even think he's scored a goal yet. Like that, you could argue he was on borrowed time from that point onwards, even with all the stuff he's done for them in the past. I mean, the likes of Ramsdale as well from Bournemouth. I mean, talk about chalk and cheese compared to Dean Henderson last season. I mean, I never really rated him when he was at Bournemouth, to be honest, and I thought that spending all the money they did on him was not a wise move, and it's been proven right so far. So I think their business has been very poor this season. I think they spent a lot of money, whereas Wilder was known for not spending that much and still getting them up. This season he's done the complete opposite. So maybe the board felt that he'd taken them as far as he could. But in terms of what you said, Andrew, about being, more cut adrift, who can they appoint this season that's going to go to them, that's going to be able to get them out of this? I can't see.
I know the perfect man for them. He's called Steve Bruce.
I thought you were going to say Rafa Benitez for a minute. Which, I mean, if there's one person who can get that out of it,
compensation, that would be great as well.
Yeah.
He's managed them before, and he's managed Sheffield Wednesday before, but he doesn't care about loyalty, so I would encourage them to go for Steve Bruce. I think, to be honest, they'll probably get a caretaker manager to the end of the year, because no one is going to want that, unless they're like a championship manager or something like that. But
I think it's Paul Heckingbottom who's taking care of their next matches. He's their assistant manager. He'll probably get the job to the end of the season, I imagine. But if they're going to why not just keep Wilder in that case and then get rid of him in the summer? I don't understand it. But
it's very strange. Very strange.
It's funny, isn't it? Because sometimes these managers, I'm sure Chris Wilder used to do this. They would say, like Sean Dyche says this all the time. Oh, if only I had 20 million to spend on a player. If only I had this much. Then you actually spend that much money. They don't realise that if they flop big. So sometimes when you bring in someone, say they bought in Brewster on a free or someone else on a free, there's less pressure with those signings, but people look much more closely when you sign. It's the same with Bournemouth last year, 15 million on Jordan Ibe. They bought him. Dominic Solanke for 20 million at the time. People start looking at things when they're big signings, whilst if they were cheap. And that's the thing with some managers. They always think, oh, if I had a bigger check, it doesn't necessarily mean that, because you have to get value for the money you spend.
Yeah.
Yeah, unlike 40 million on Joe Linton. What are you trying to say?
Blame on Joe Linton. The fact that Joe Linton has outscored Brewster, Brewster should just retire.
Actually, you raise a good point, actually.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, to be fair, that's a sackable offence in and of itself. If your record signing has less goals than Joe Linton, perhaps you've got a point there. But yep, okay. Well, that really just leaves us with a let's all laugh at. There's not been too much this week. I'll get mine out of the way nice and early because it's quite a small one. Now I've gone for the Championship official Twitter account. It tweeted the Manager of the Month nominations as Ivan Toney, Timu Pukki, the Barnsley player I can't remember the name of, I'm afraid, and someone else. I can't remember the actual list, but basically they listed the Players of the Month as Manager of the Month instead. Again, it's quite a small thing, but I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, the player of the month in the Premier League is ridiculous. Bruno Fernandes gets nominated every single month. I'm just like, okay, he's good, but he's not great every single month. He's been off form recently, and they're like, yeah, he's nominated. It's just like someone's just left his name on the computer and just can't be bothered to delete it.
Yeah, copy and paste. Yeah.
Yeah, really. I've got to say, I mean, Ivan Toney was at Newcastle before he left us. I think he went to Peterborough first.
Yeah.
He's a really good footballer. He will be a very good Premier League striker. I think whoever gets him, I think West Ham are looking at him and Tammy Abraham. Like, I think they'll definitely have got a good signing. And people
if Brentford go up, I don't think anyone will get him straight away. I think he'll stay for at least one more season. But yeah.
I think for me, with us, we should have loaned him out more.
Yeah.
And got him on a longer deal. We should have done the same with Adam Armstrong, who's also likely to be going for 15 to 20 million this summer. Because, Ivan Toney now would be miles ahead of Joe Linton, Gale and Carroll. So it's just, it's those things where you let players get away from you. So you've got to be careful, like Arsenal when they let Serge Gnabry go.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
We've all got those players that got away. There's so many I can think of for Palace. I mean, less so with Sorloth now he's gone to Leipzig because he hasn't scored that many goals to them. But at the time, it was quite a big one. There's others I probably can't think of right now, but they definitely.
Norway, Odegaard and Haaland, like they're going to have some sort of rejuvenation with those two, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I forget if they qualified for the Euros, but if they have, then they could be real dark horses for that. Maybe not to win the thing, but like quarterfinals certainly, I think is possible for them.
Oh yeah, well, goals, isn't he? I mean, it's ridiculous. His stats, it's just it's just ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it.
With Haaland as well, I mean, watched a few more of his games recently, and this isn't the greatest Dortmund team. So you imagine if he was playing in that Man City team. Like he reminds me so much of Aguero when he first came to league. He doesn't miss. Like he'll always hit the target. Doesn't miss, and his timing of his runs is just fantastic. He's just a brilliant footballer.
Yep. Okay. So we'll move on to you then, Andrew. What have you got?
I think mine was probably Man U conceding so late was quite funny. Oh yeah, and I'm kind of hoping now the media, because I find the media a bit draining with it's the end of Ronaldo, it's the end of Messi. Why? Like, I'm a bit fed up of the way the media report, like, Ronaldo shouldn't carry Juventus through. Ronaldo is still Juventus's best player, probably. So I always find it funny when they blame the best player for the teams going out. And the other thing I found, I wouldn't say I laugh at, I cringed for him, was Ian Wright's apology to Alexander Lacazette. You've made a point to laugh at him and say it's ridiculous. It was ridiculous, his screaming. Stop being like so fake and stand by what you said. I just found it really cringe. He's like, I've had to call him and apologise. I was like, the guy dived. He's tried to cheat by screaming very, very loudly. It's embarrassing for the game. You've said something. Most people found it funny. Yeah, and it's true. He's cheating. You don't need to apologise to him. He should be changing his behaviour. Not like you don't need to apologise. He's trying to cheat. This is all players, all these players who dive around. I'm not just saying Lacazette. I think Lacazette's a really good footballer. I think he's a brilliant footballer. But Ian Wright apologising, it's just cringe. Just like stand by what you said. Stop being so fake.
Yeah, I thought it was a foul. I'm joking, didn't really. I'm joking.
So fake. Like, and the other thing is, I would say, I know it's not football related, but Piers Morgan getting sacked.
Yeah, we won't go into that because it's not football related, like you said. But I mean, technically, you can argue it is how much he bangs on about Arsenal, but
yeah, exactly. I think it's just.
Yeah, I mean, with the Ian Wright thing, it reminds me a lot of Paul Merson a few years ago when United signed Harry Maguire. I mean, ironically, one of the 3 sensible things he's ever said in his life. We talked about Maguire because United press a lot higher, he's not going to be as effective, and it's going to seem a complete waste of money. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened, and everyone's been saying the same thing ever since. But he went back and retracted the statement and apologised to Harry Maguire for criticising him. It's like, how many players have retracted? Has Alan Shearer retracted his criticism for Wilfred Zaha? Like, no, because at the time he had a point. Like, he's gone on to prove him wrong since then. But like, you've got to stand by. Like, it's like you say, Andrew. You've got to stand by your convictions as a pundit. Like, it's only when.
I think it's the way you express the criticism. So if you express the criticism, like this is one of the things I like about Mike Richards. When he criticizes, he's trying to be a bit constructive, and he's not going in. While Souness and Roy Keane will challenge question the character, question the desire, blame modern society, blame anything for why these players are underperforming. But if you say, well, his positioning is off, he needs to do this better, he needs to do that better. But when you just say, oh, they lack heart, they lack Pogba, it's because he's on Instagram all the time. I can see like why they should apologise because it's too far. But sometimes they, if they say something, like you said, they should stand by it. Paul Merson is a very, like I've said this before, if Arsenal were, if he watches Pepe one week, he says, oh yeah, he's one of the best players in the world. Next week he has a bad game. Yeah, he's not good enough for Arsenal. He shouldn't be in any other team. Like they're very what's the word? Reactionary. They don't look at the overall, they don't reactive. They don't look at the overall picture. They don't say, oh, actually he's a good player. Maybe he needs to do this. He just says based on one appearance. So yeah.
Yeah. All right then. Well, speaking of Arsenal, that just leaves you then, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple. I like Haaland's reaction to scoring a penalty the other night was quite amusing. But and by the way, Norway haven't qualified for the Euros. By the way, they didn't qualify.
Oh, that's a bit of a shame.
But North Macedonia have, so you can all cheer on them. No,
nice.
But yeah, the Haaland penalty was quite amusing because the keeper saved it, and then he kind of shouted something at Haaland, and then he was off his line, and about a minute and a half later, he had to retake it, and then Haaland done it, shouted in his face, and he celebrated, and all the Seville players were. That was quite funny. But I saw it on Twitter. I think they had done it was Jamie Carragher and Michael Richards in the studio, and they had because Haaland scored is it 20 goals or in 14 appearances or something like that in the Champions League or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had stats of Jamie Carragher and Michael Richards and how long it would have taken them to score 20 goals in the Champions League. I think Michael Richards was 2,335 games and Jamie Carragher was 15,000 games or something like that. It was quite funny. And Michael Richards was like, "Oh, I'm prolific. That's why." It was quite amusing. But apart from that, there hasn't been much this week. To be fair, of course, United conceding was quite funny. To be fair, but there hasn't been much. But the Haaland celebration did make me chuckle when he just probably shouted in the keeper's face and then ran off celebrating and he got chased by a Seville player.
Yeah.
It was just quite funny.
He does need to be careful though, because last year, I think it was the first leg against PSG, he did his little Buddha celebration when he scored his second goal. And then when PSG went and won the second leg and knocked him out, all the PSG players did the Buddha celebration.
Absolutely tore him to shreds. Yeah, a lot of people were slagging him off for making fun of a teenager. He's a teenager that's just scored against them and he's a professional. He's a senior player and scored against them and he's bigging it up against them. They've got every right to do that to him. I thought it was great, but regardless.
So and the keeper shouted at him and. And he got retaken, and he kind of shouted back at him in whatever he said, and it was just quite funny to see. And it was like when he was being chased by the Seville players, one of them sounded from Benny Hill. He was just chased. It was just quite it was just quite funny.
Play the music in the background, yeah.
It's quite funny, but Haaland, what a player he is. I mean, I'll tell you what, as Andrew said about the media on about Ronaldo and Messi, it's the end of them two. But them two are still phenomenal players. I mean, it's not quite the end of them two.
We need to start moving to Haaland and Mbappe and the like, don't we? Let's start talking about who the next great players are rather than lamenting the fall of the other ones, because we all knew it was coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's be fair. I mean, Mbappe and Haaland, yes, them two, maybe next season, them two will be the two best players in the world, and they're both world class, absolutely. But Messi and Ronaldo can still play a little bit. They haven't lost anything. They just went out. That was it.
I think Messi is still the best player in the world by a little bit, and this is just my opinion.
His goal went back, was it tonight? What a goal that was.
But he's surrounded by not as good players at Barcelona, especially their defence. And so people say, oh, he's fading and everything like that. If you put him in a certain team, then he would, if he goes to the French league, he will score a ridiculous number of goals, But I guess as well, he missed the penalty, didn't he? So, that might have changed the game a little bit more. But for me, Messi is still the best player in the world, but Mbappe is very, very close, and Haaland is also not far from it. But I'll be honest with you, as great as Mbappe and Haaland are, they are not as skillful as Lionel Messi when he was that age. He was just incredible. I think the first time like I saw him play was against Chelsea, where he played on the right against Delorno, and he was ridiculous. And he was only 18. And I mean, the goals against Bayern Munich, where he puts Jerome Boateng on the floor, and the goal against Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final, like as great as Mbappe and Haaland are, I don't think they would be capable of scoring those type of goals.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as for, I think that's for me. That's a clear winner out of the ones that we've chosen. I mean, it's not quite embarrassingly things to laugh at. It's more something to laugh with. Like, it's just quite humorous in general, like quite a bit charming. Like, he's showing his age a little bit there. And like you said, Johnny, I think that or Andrew said, he needs to be more careful with stuff like that because it can backfire. But I mean, he's one of the best players in the world and he's enjoying himself, so why not?
Absolutely. You know, he's got to be careful with celebrations. It can bite you in the arse, of course. But
it's like Luis Suarez. Do you remember Luis Suarez last season? He was like, oh, when I score at Anfield, I won't celebrate. Or 2 years ago, when I score at Anfield, I won't celebrate. And obviously they lost 4-0 and went out of the Champions League. Yeah. Awkward.
Yeah. All right, okay. Well, yeah, that's about all the time we've got time for. So thanks for listening to this episode. Be sure to drop us on a like and a follow, whatever platform you're on. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify at Let's All Laugh at a Football Podcast, as well as Twitter at LALA_podcast. Be sure to check out Johnny's work at Life's a Pitch. Be sure to check out Andrew's channel. Be sure to check out all of our social media. Links in the description, as always. Thanks to Johnny and Andrew for joining me. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.